Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Citizen Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I'm the teacher Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You're always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from both me, the teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled from Monday through Thursday, 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are in our 7th week of our 9-week course. You need to be submitting work at this point to make sure you're getting it all wrapped up if you're following along with the course material. So a reminder that the support questions, the ones with the pencil icon, are not for marking. They are practice problems. So you decide which ones and how many to do. If you are understanding a concept, feel free to skip questions. You don't need to do them all just because they're there. You know what you need best. But also, if you need more practice, this is completely understandable. So please ask, and I'm happy to send you more practice. However, the key questions, the ones with a little key icon, are the marked questions. And these ones, you need to do all of them. So please complete them all, show all of your work, all of your steps, your thinking. This way I can give you full credit for what you understand and figure out how to support you for what you are struggling with. So then how do you actually submit your work for marking? There's 3 options. The first method is to scan your work and send it electronically. You can scan your completed work through devices. If you have an Apple device, there's a Notes app that comes along that you can scan with it. And Android devices have the Google Drive app that has scan function. I have tech tutorials on my YouTube channel for both these devices in order to scan. So you can go check that out if you're interested in learning how to scan using your device. If you need to take pictures because you don't have access to these apps or these devices, that's totally fine. Just scanning them makes the file slightly smaller and easier to send. Just makes my life a little bit easier, but no worries if you need to send pictures. Then send them to either email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can also send it through Facebook Messenger to bslatewasa. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our 74 Front Street location. We're the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. We're not yet open to the public, but just put your work in that mailbox and we'll get it back to you as soon as we can. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Students are also welcome to send their work through the fax if you have access to a fax machine. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name bslatewasa. So if you friend me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll get notifications every time I upload one of our radio Zoom classes. All of our classes are recorded and I upload them shortly after broadcasting. Also on my YouTube channel, there are short videos that explain common errors and confusing concepts. So if you're struggling with something, it can be a really good option to go there first to check out what I've already addressed and covered, because it just narrows down your general online search to get support and help. Totally contact me and I'm happy to help. But if you're working outside of the hours that I'm working, then it makes sense that you might need other support. So go check out my YouTube channel. There might be videos there that can help you. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos. Either joining me live through Zoom or watching the replays on YouTube. Both are great options. It just gives you the full experience if you're able to access the videos. If you don't have reliable internet, so you can't do either of those options, that's totally understandable. Just let me know and I'm happy to send you a copy of the recording so you get the full experience. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. My email address is bronwyn.slate and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook, again, is B Slate Wahsa. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free at 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., though I teach from 9 to 11 in the morning, so I'm not available during that time. If you would need to connect with me outside of those hours, just let me know and we can try to make something work for both of us. All right, today's lesson is lesson 17, traveling distances. So our learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use a paper map to estimate travel distances. You'll be able to use an electronic map to estimate travel distances and predict travel duration, so how long travel is going to be. And you will understand how weather conditions influence travel times, which is perfect for right now as seasons change. You know you've got the learning goals because you can use the given scale and the given data to measure distances between places. You can use Google Maps to find distances and estimations of travel times, and you can explain how bad weather results in longer travel times. So when we'll use this in real life? Well, we're learning how to make decisions and to justify them. Right now is a prime example of weather conditions are changing. It is really important if you're traveling to know how far and how long it should take you roughly, but also how that might change based on the weather and the conditions. And so making decisions about when you're going to travel, where you're going to travel to, and feeling confident and comfortable with those decisions are really important. So we are working on that skill. But let's first, as always, activate our brain with some mental math. I don't like mad math minutes. They stress people out. They do not set students up for success. So I strongly discourage the use of this in classrooms. Instead, I believe in developing strategies that are useful because they're transferable, they help you understand, and they use friendly numbers that you're comfortable with. Our question today is 308 divided by 28, and we're going to use the concept of proportional reasoning. This is not a friendly number. This division stresses many folks out. Even I'm like, oh, what am I getting myself into? So with proportional reasoning, what you're going to do is we're going to scale these by the same amount each time. So we're going to break them up into smaller and smaller groups. We're going to break up both the number of things we're dividing, 308, and the number of groups that we're dividing it into, 28. We're going to break these up by the same amount in order to simplify our question. So I'm going to use friendly numbers, and I'm going to just start with 2. I'm going to divide both of these by 2. So if I cut them in half, then I know that I'm still having the same proportion to compare, but they're going to be smaller numbers. So 308 divided by 2, well, 300 I know divided by 2 is 150, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's going to be 154. And 28 divided by 4, well, 20 divided by 4 is 10, and 28 divided by 2, 20 divided by 2 is 10, and 8 divided by 2 is 4, so that's going to be 14. So again, I'm still not really at a number that I feel super friendly about. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to divide both I would cut them both in half and see if I get a number that is friendlier. So 150 cut in half. Well, 100 cut in half is 50. 50 cut in half is 25. So 150 cut in half is 75. 4 cut in half is 2. So 75 plus 2 is 77. And 14 cut in half is 7. So now I have 77 divided by 7. Well, that I know 77 divided by 7 is equal to 11. So 308 divided by 28 is also going to be 11 because I've compared, I've just cut everything in half to make my group smaller and smaller and smaller. My proportion, my ratio between the two is still the same. So that scaling that made something that was really not friendly looking at all into something that was quite straightforward. 77 divided by 11 is something, or sorry, 77 divided by 7 equaling 11 is something that was really friendly and easy for me to do. And that's proportional reasoning. All right, mine's on. What do we need to know today? So today we need to do a little bit more mathy type, just abstract number stuff. We're going to use the tool of cross multiplying and dividing. This is not a strategy that I love, but it is something that many folks are familiar with when they are when they're using ratios and trying to find an unknown. So we're going to use it. And if you have any questions about this or this part is confusing for you, please let me know. And I'm happy to walk through it and figure out a way that might make the most sense for you personally. So our first question is 8 divided by 12 equals x over 30. So we're trying to figure out the ratio of 8 to 12. How does that compare to something to 30? So with cross multiplying and divide, which is just a set of rules, a set of steps to follow. This isn't my favorite way, but we don't have a ton of time to go into it because we're just using it as a tool. So we're going to cross multiply. So that means that we're going to multiply 8 times 30 and 12 times x. Because we're simplifying, we're trying to simplify for x. And so this is one strategy of how to remember how to simplify for an unknown. So 8 times 30 is going to be 240. I know that because 8 times 3 is 24. And 12 times x is just 12x. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 12 in order to get my x by itself. Because this is like saying I have 12 groups of x, and if I just want one group of x, I'm going to divide both by 12. Well, 240 divided by 12, 24 divided by 12 is 2, so 240 divided by 12 is 20, is equal to x. So this is telling me that the ratio of what we really figured out is that the ratio of 8 to 12 is equal to the ratio of 20 to 30. They're both 2/3. That is what we have figured out. So then sometimes when we are doing this, our variable might be on the bottom of a ratio. So we have another example. We have 63 over 108 is equal to 9 over y. So again, we can use the same strategy of cross multiplying and dividing. So we're going to multiply our numbers across the equal sign. So we're going to do 63 times y, which is 63y, is equal to 108 times 9. So 63y is equal to, well, 108 times 9. 100 times 9 is going to be 900, and 8 times 9 is 72. So that's going to be 972. So then y is, we're going to divide both sides by 63. And we can use proportional reasoning or one of our other strategies, or we can just use a calculator. So 972 divided by 63 is equal to 15.4. Just going to make sure that I multiplied that right. Yes. Okay. 15.4. So y is equal to 15.4. So what this is saying is that the ratio of 63 to 108 is equal to the ratio of 9 to 15.4. And that's what cross multiplying and dividing is, some steps to follow in order to solve for an unknown variable. This is not the only way. This is not the most logical way. This is the functional way that many students are taught. So I don't have, it's a skill. It is not a new concept that we are focusing on in this class, but it's a skill that we're going to need. And it's most likely that you've been taught this way before. So this is why I'm just going over it like this way now. Again, if it's confusing for you, let me know, and I'm happy to work with you to help it make sense. Okay, so then we also need to remember how comparing ratios works when in today's lesson. So we're going to look at this example to think about how comparing ratios works. Darnell and Lester took a fishing trip with their scout troop last weekend. Darnell caught 4 catfish and 8 trout. Lester caught 3 catfish and 6 trout. Did the boys catch the same ratio of catfish to trout? So how we figure this out is that we want to simplify these, kind of like we've done with unit prices or Best Buy, things like that. We just want to simplify our ratios. But the thing is that we need to make sure that we're always comparing the same thing to the same thing. So we're going to do catfish to trout. And with ratios, we set them up. It's possible to set them up as a fraction, is fine. So for Darnell, caught 4 catfish to 8 trout. You could also write this as 4 to 8 with a semicolon between them. It's the same thing, they're just different notations. And Lester caught 3 catfish to 6 trout, which also you could write as 3 to 6 with a semicolon. So that's still, what does that mean? Well, if we simplify this, and we can say that that means that Darnell, for every 1 catfish Darnell caught, he caught 2 trout, right? Because twice the number 8 is twice of 4. So for every catfish that Darnell caught, he caught 2 trout. And Lester, the same thing. If we simplify that, we can simplify that also to 1/2, because for every 3 to 6, well, again, 6 trout is double 3 trout. So also Lester caught, for every 1 catfish, Lester caught 2 trout. So therefore, the boys caught the same ratio of fish. So even though Darnell got more fish, they both caught the same ratio. They still both caught the same amount more of trout than catfish in terms of the ratio. They caught twice as many trout as they did catfish. So another example, Regan and Tisha are using roses and carnations to arrange bouquets for the Bud Time of Flower Expo. Regan plans to use 6 roses and 4 carnations. Tisha plans to use 5 roses and 3 carnations, whose bouquet will smell more like roses. So again, we want to make sure we're comparing the same thing. So we're saying roses to carnations. It doesn't matter. You could do carnations to roses. I'm just doing roses to carnations because that's the order that they came in the question. So I'm saying roses over carnations. So for Regan's bouquet, Regan was 6 roses to 4 carnations. And for Tisha's, it was 5 roses to 3 carnations. So here we can try to see if we can simplify these into simpler fractions. Well, it's not really they're not really nice fractions to simplify. They don't get into, the last one we had a half, and so that was nice. 6/4 is the same as 3/2. 5/3, we can't really simplify it. Neither, both numbers are not divisible by the same thing. So that doesn't really get any simpler. So our numbers aren't really any better to compare. So sometimes we need to divide. So we're actually going to divide these. And so we're going to do 6 divided by 4, and we're going to get this in a decimal. So that's 1.5. And 5 divided by 3 is 1.6. 1.66, so 1.67 really. So this is telling us that we have a higher ratio of, because this is like Best Buy, so this is to 1 for both of these. So that's 1.5 roses to 1 carnation. If I could spell carnation, that'd be great. And for Tisha, this is 1.67 roses to 1 carnation. So even though when you look at the numbers at first, you're like, I don't even know what this means. Whose bouquet is going to smell more like roses? I don't know. Who has more rose per carnation? Well, Tisha, even though Regan's has more roses, Tisha's has a higher ratio of rose to carnation. Tisha's bouquet will smell more like roses. So understanding ratios is pretty important for today's lesson. So we're going to keep coming back to this concept of ratio. Okay, but what is our new learning that we need to get into today? We're estimating distances on maps. So this is on page 16 of your IL booklet. So rarely are 2 places on a map connected by a straight line. So estimation is used to calculate the distance between 2 locations. The scale on a map shows the size of an area represented by the map. To use estimation effectively, a scale must be given on the map to calculate distances. These scales are usually given in one of the corners of the map. So looking on a paper map, which many folks don't use anymore, but this is a paper map of Northwestern Ontario. And so somewhere on here is the scale, right here is the scale. So we zoom that in, we can see it says map scale. It says 1 to 1,600,000. It's like, what does that even mean? So it means that 1 centimeter on this map is equal to 16 kilometers. So they're going to give you just the number in general in terms of the actual scale, the actual ratio, but then they're also going to give it to you in terms of distance. So this is a small space, so it makes sense that we're measuring in centimeters, but in real life, we don't generally measure in centimeters. In terms of distances, we measure in kilometers. So this is saying the distance on here is equivalent to 16 kilometers. And then they also give you a line scale too, where you can see it actually shows you that this distance here, if you were to use a string or something, this distance on your map is 20 kilometers. They also give it to you in miles. We're not going to focus on the miles. We're just going to focus on the kilometers. So on a Google map, if you go online and you do this, then there's also a scale. The scale is down here in the bottom corner. It says 50 kilometers. So this little distance here, sorry, the link is keeping showing up. This distance here is worth is the equivalent of 50 kilometers on your map. Now, if we go into the map, we can see here now, if you look at the scale, it's this distance, which looks like the same distance, is 200 kilometers because we're zoomed out on the map of Ontario. So as you zoom in, you can see now it says 100 kilometers, that distance, 50 kilometers. It's going to be different depending on how close you are to the area. So as you get closer, that same distance is getting smaller. So it's just important to look at that at your scale, because it's going to tell you that this space, this distance represents 5 kilometers in this this perspective on the map. Your booklet, your IL booklet, the scale looks a little bit different, but it's the same idea. So they give it to you both in miles and in kilometers. So this distance here, this length is equal to 5 kilometers approximately. Okay, so those are the different ways that you can see scale showing up in various types of maps. So if we're actually estimating differences on a map, how do we actually do it? There's a bunch of steps. So you measure the scale given on the map and write it as a ratio. Then step 2, you use a ruler to measure the distance from the 2 points. Only measure straightish distances. It's okay. It's an estimation, so it doesn't have to be exact. Step 3, you want to add the estimated distances that you measured. And step 4, write an equation with the scale and the unknown, which I use X because I'm a math teacher, but you can do whatever you want to represent the distance in kilometers that you're looking for. And then step 4, you're going to use X to solve for X using the cross multiplying and dividing that we've reviewed. Okay, so let's look at one example. Now, I need to just get a ruler. So 1 second, I forgot that I needed a ruler. Doing things electronically makes things a little bit different, but you are doing the same thing on a computer. So why? You're not going to let me do what I need to do, are you? Because the technology hates me. Okay, so because I have bad luck, for some reason, this program is not going to let me usually do what I would do. So it's just not updated and I don't have the power to actually update it. So we are going to just imagine using a ruler. I'm really sorry about that. This is my life. Technology and I are not friends these days. Okay, I will do another video and that where I can actually show you this with a virtual ruler, and I'll link it in the show notes so that you can see it, how you'd actually do this. If you're using your piece of paper and a ruler, you can follow along. So if you were, how we would do it. So for this question, it says, estimate the distance from the Jeremiah McKay Kabeshi Wickamik, I'm probably saying that awfully, I'm sorry, hostel to the Fresh Market Foods. So this is the hostel down here. So if you were using your ruler, you're going to measure distances. So along the roads, because we drive by roads. So you're going to measure here, and then you're going to measure there, roughly straight. We're going to pretend that there's no roundabout. So we're not construction, we're ignoring the construction. We're going to measure straight there, then straight along here. I'm not going to worry about the wiggle. I'm just going to measure that as a straight distance. And then here, and then here. So you measure all of those little distances. Here you could also, you can be more precise and follow the the road, or you could just measure, oh, that's not a straight line. Measure that as sort of a straight line. Again, we're making an estimation, so it's okay. So then you'd have each of these distances, and then you would add them all up. Your distances, you'd add them all up, and then you'd have distance, and then using this scale, you would be able to figure out what that is in terms of actual distance compared to the centimeters that it is here. Because I don't have a ruler, I can't do that. So you need a ruler. So the same idea here, if you are estimating the distance from Mishkikogomen to Sioux Lookout, you would find the roads. It's really kind of hard to see, but you could, even with your ruler, you could just do, because we're estimating, you could say, okay, well, I'm going to measure, I'm going to say, I'm not going to worry about the wiggles and woggles. I'm just going to say, okay, so it's about like that far. And then from here to here, it's about like that. And then I'm going to measure those two distances and then each scale here to figure it out. But obviously, if you're using a paper map, that is really different if you don't have a ruler. So if you have a ruler, you can do the support questions on page 18, questions 1 through 3. I will make another video and I can link in so that you can see how you actually do that if you have a ruler, and I will show you how to do it if you don't have a ruler like me, which I can't do virtually really easily on the spot. I have to set myself up a little bit. So I will make that video and link it into the show notes so that you can have that to help you out. Okay, so estimating distance using technology. This hopefully is going to work for me because I actually have technology. So this is on page 20 of your IEL booklet. So you can also use the internet to find distances between locations, which can be really helpful when all of a sudden you don't have a ruler. Being able to doing it for you can be helpful. Also, they generally will give you estimated driving times and directions if you want them. So one site is Google Maps, which is google.com/maps. This is the one that I use most often, and when I did some searching, it seemed like the one that was the most used and the most effective. So this is what Google Maps looks like. So if we go into it, we can, let's find the distance from Red Lake to Ignace. So what we're going to do is we're going to search and we're going to put in Red Lake, and it's okay if you don't spell it right because then you can just select the one that you want. And then the key here is that you're going to go to directions. Even if you don't want the actual directions, you just want the distance, you go to directions, and then you want to go from Ignace to Red Lake. If we wanted to go actually from Red Lake, we want to start in Red Lake, we can click this button, these arrows where they're reversing, and it's going to switch them. Now, it shouldn't change it too much because the distance is actually still the same. But then you can see here, it tells us 321 kilometers, which is about 3 hours and 36 minutes. Also here on the map, they tell you the same thing, 321 kilometers, 3 hours and 36 minutes is the rough estimate. And they tell you, you can then go into the details and look at actually how you do that, if that's what you're interested in. But using technology, they do all of the little wiggling and woggling measuring for you. So it is 321 kilometers. So we want to do the same thing to find the distance from Dryden to Sault Ste. Marie. So we're going to just go in here and we said from Dryden. And it's just going to automatically jump to what you have. So we can, it moves around, but that's fine. And then, so you can see it says 1,032 kilometers. Again, it tells you the 10 hours and 59 minutes. It also shows you, here you're like, what's this straight line? Like there's no roads. That's if you're flying. This little airplane tells you that it's a 3 hour and 5 minute flight. And generally it's about $1,856. It doesn't tell you the distance, it tells you the price. So ignoring that, you also, sometimes there's more than one route. If you wanted to go this way through Thunder Bay, or if you wanted to go this way, they'll give you a couple of options that might be better depending on distance or the time. This is really not very many options, so it's not really any difference. But sometimes there's more options, like if you're going the north route to Ottawa, you can go the southern route or the northern route, and they can see how they're slightly different. So that's 1,032 kilometers. So technology is pretty quick and easy to do it. So now you can do the support questions on page 22, number 4. You are welcome to use, if you have an app on your phone, to use, like if you just have the map app that comes on, if you have a phone or a device, you're totally fine to just use that. You don't have to use online sources to do this. If you don't have access to a computer and you can't get into your learning center to do this, let me know and we can figure out an alternative in terms of how you can figure this out. All right, looking again a little bit more on paper maps, because there's some more information on paper maps that can be useful. So as you can see, this is the other side of, this is Southern Ontario, and there's lots of little roads. So it can be really hard sometimes to figure out what's going on. So there are legends that tell you what all of these different roads, the types of roads mean, the population size, the type of boundary, if there's other sort of travel and tourist information, is all here. There's a ton of information on paper maps. I love paper maps. I know they're sort of less and less used, but this paper maps are super fun, I find. But also there's this part. So in the top, if you remember looking here, this triangle here, what that actually is this distance comparison. So it tells you on those paper maps, it can be really hard to like measure all those little pieces and to really find out. But if you're using a paper map and you're looking at larger urban centers, then this can help you. So if we are looking at, we did Red Lake. So Red Lake is here. And then let's see, do they have Ignace? Oh, they have Ignace here. So that one we compared, right? And so how this works is that if you look up, these are all the distances of Red Lake to different places. And if we look across from Ignace, these are all the distances from Ignace to certain places. And we see where these met, 320. And that's what we found out using it online, right? It said 321. So that just tells us how you can use a paper map to tell you what those distances are. The same way if we did Dryden, it's in alphabetical order. So Dryden looking across, and Sault Ste. Marie, which is down here. So looking up all the way, 1,030. Remember, it was 1,032. So it's routed to the nearest 5 kilometers. So that just gives us a rough idea of generally how close those are. Now, these are only for these larger urban centers. So, and of course, doesn't take into account places that have fly into or winter roads. These are year-round roads for larger places in Ontario, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea, which can be kind of helpful. Also on paper maps are these inserts. And so when we're looking at the big map, it can be really hard to get all the information that you need. And so an insert just sort of is a small cutout that zooms in. On technology, we can zoom in and out. On a paper map, you can't. So this is the old-fashioned way of zooming in and out. And so this insert is the insert of the farthest west southern portion of northwestern Ontario. So you can see that this is the Kenora region, and over here is Sioux Lookout and Lac Sewell. And so that you're able to get a little bit more information about it's a little bit easier to see where things are if you're looking at a paper map. So with this is that there's these really, on the paper map, there's these little red numbers. And what these red numbers are telling you are the distances between these little red stars. So when our ruler wasn't working and I was like, oh, great, I can't do this. If we were on a paper map, we were zoomed in, if we're in the insert, we can see that to go from Sioux Lookout to Mishkigugaman, we can see, okay, so it's roughly, now this 156 is going from around Savant Lake all the way up to Pickle Lake. So it's not exactly, because Mishkigugaman is closer than Pickle Lake, but if we're estimating, that distance is 156. And from Sioux Lookout to this junction where the road changes is 104. So that means that if we add them together, we have 260. So it's roughly 260 kilometers from Sioux Lookout to Mishkigugaman. Obviously, it's not quite as much because that's going all the way to Pickle Lake, but that gives us a rough approximation of how much it's going to be. The same thing, here's another one where you can look and you say, okay, if we want to go from Wabigoon, so we have, that's here again, this star, from this star to this star is 60 kilometers, and I want to go to Saugeen. So we're missing a little bit of information, but then we have from this star to this star is 8. And then I want to go from this star over to this star is 104. And again, we're missing a little bit because there's a little bit past that. So 100 plus 8 plus 60 is going to be 172. So that's an estimation. Again, estimating doesn't mean exactly. That gives us a rough idea of it's approximately 170 kilometers from Wabigoon to Saugeen. And that's how you can use a paper map to use. That's some more information that's on a paper map. So then the last thing we want to talk about briefly before we wrap up is when travel time changes when we're driving. So basically at night, slow down. Here is an image that shows us stopping distance. So if you are traveling 80 kilometers an hour at night, it takes, night or day, it takes 60 kilometers to, 60 meters to stop if you're driving 80 kilometers an hour. So if you put your brakes on right here, then your car is going to continue moving forward to stop here. So if your lights are on, you see a person, as soon as they are in your lights, you see them, and that's 45 meters, and you hit the gas immediately. Sorry, you hit the brakes immediately, not the gas, hit the brakes immediately. Your vehicle is still going to take 60 meters to stop. You're still going to hit this person. Whereas if you are driving at 70 kilometers an hour, only 10 kilometers slower, that person is in your, you see that person in your distance, in your lights. Now you're going to stop in 40 meters. So that 10 kilometers slower means that you have 20 meters more that you're going to stop faster, which is good because your lights only hit 45 meters. So here you're going to definitely hit things in the dark because you can't see them. And there's no way for you to stop faster. Your vehicle just needs more time to stop. So slow down at night. The same with if you are driving on wet roads. It takes longer. So how this shows is that you have a reaction time. So the faster you're going, the longer it takes for you travel farther in your reaction time because it takes your time for your brain to process and to stop. So your car is still moving while you are processing and trying to stop, but your car is still moving. And then if you are on a wet road, your car is going to slide and not as going to stop as quickly because of it can't grip the ground as much. So if you're driving 110 kilometers an hour, it's probably going to take you about 46 meters to stop while you're reacting to something. And then if the road is wet, it's going to be another 97 meters that your car is going to be moving as you are pressing the brakes and stopping. And so if you're reacting to something being in your way, you're likely going to hit that because your vehicle just takes more time to stop. So if you slow down, you don't travel as far while you're reacting, and you don't slide as far on a wet road. Here's another little graphic that just shows that on a dry road, it's going to stop traveling the same speed at 50 kilometers an hour. You need to stop. On a dry road, it's going to take you 35 meters to stop. On a wet road, it's going to be 40 meters-ish to stop. On a packed snowy road, which we're coming up to, it's going to take you 55 meters to stop. On an icy road, which is right now with this rain and freezing rain and snow all coming at the same time, it takes you 87 meters to stop. So even if you're still driving slow, it takes your vehicle, just because the conditions takes you longer to stop. So slow down. If you have winter tires, this is better traction, so you stop faster than if you have summer tires or even all season tires. So in the winter, slow down. If you can't change your tires, I mean, one, we live here, you need to change your tires so that you can stop better, more effectively, and drive safer. But either way, slow down. This is my message. When you have different raining conditions and you can't see very well, as you can see in these images, slow down, because you can't see what's happening. You don't know if there's a moose out there or a kid or a dog. Who knows? Slow down. So right now, these are a couple of memes that are out on the internet because 'tis the season where you are seeing this everywhere. Already I'm seeing on Facebook, on my social media, where I follow like highway conditions, highway accidents, and there's already accidents happening. And we've only had a week of it starting to be like tiny little bit of snow. So there's tons of people in the ditch already, because if you haven't changed your tires, which I haven't changed my tires yet, it hasn't happened, then you need to slow down, because it's so easy to get into the vehicle. This means that it's going to take you longer to get places, so you need to plan. If you need to travel someplace far, you need to give yourself more time, because you need to go slower in order to actually arrive there. Please slow down, give yourself time. Think about the fact that the distance is the same, but the conditions, you cannot drive as fast when it's snowy and rainy and bad weather. So you need to slow down, which means that your driving time is going to take longer. You need to plan for this. All right, that's my little rant about travel times changing based on weather conditions. All right, so what are our highlights from today? So we looked at estimating distances on a paper map. We looked at the provided scales and the given distances. Those are those little red things all together. I apologize again that I wasn't able to actually show you how to do the scale, because technology hates me. But again, I will do an extra video and put that up on YouTube so that you can see how that does, and link it in the show notes. Then we looked at estimating distances with technology. So Google Maps, the direction feature is really great. We were able to do that really quickly and easily compared to it not working for me on the paper map. So I love paper maps, but technology can sometimes be really slick and easy. And then we talked about travel time due to bad weather, that you need to slow down in order to be able to see safely, in order to be able to stop safely, in order to not slide into the ditch, you need to slow down. If you're slowing down because there is bad weather, that means it's going to take you longer. So if there's snow, if it's night, if it's rainy, you need to most likely slow down. Different amounts depending on the conditions. You want to be driving for the conditions, but you still need to slow down. All right, so our success criteria. You can use the given scale and the given data to measure distances between places. You can use Google Maps to find distances and estimate the estimation of travel times. And you can explain how bad weather results in longer travel times. Hopefully I have been clear enough with that. All right, and that wraps up lesson 17 for us today. We are getting so close to the end of our course, only a couple more weeks and only 3 more lessons of brand new material. So if you're struggling with anything, please reach out and connect with me so I can support you, so that you can get your lessons in and you can wrap up your credit. If you want to call me at the office, the number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Or or you can call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. Feel free to email me at bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook, where my name is B Slate Wahsa, or YouTube, where the channel is also called B Slate Wahsa. Remember, all of our lessons are under a playlist called MEL3E, and there are other videos that help you with tech stuff and other concepts if you need some support. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. This is why I'm here. I hope you have a lovely day and you can stay safe out there on these lovely snowy roads. Thanks very much for joining me. Which